Hey, Doug. Another. How are you? It's a little bit. It's been a little bit since we did a video, but a lot of cool things have happened. And in fact, we went and to the Strongsville show, my first time ever. And we went together, and that was awesome. Thank you for setting that all up and allowing me to tag along with you because it was
No
a
problem.
really
It
cool
was a
show.
lot of fun.
Yeah, for me it was great because going to the show, there was things going on at work, and at one point I thought I may have to go back to to work, fly back to work. But it all worked out, and I was able to actually enjoy the show. So that was good. But it was my first show, and you've been there a few times, haven't you?
Yeah, I have been. I think this is my third year in a row, and then I had been many years ago to a show in the either the late '70s or the early '80s.
The so I'll go into what I thought, as a first time showgoer, and I kind of had two different takes, two different opinions. The first thing is just the opinion overall for me was Um, it was a collector show. It was for people who collect vintage cards, and it's for collectors to get together and nerd out about cards. That
And
was
that we
a
did.
lot of the show. Like
Yeah.
it's not the biggest show. So the one thing I was my first impression was I'm like, well, disappointed that there wasn't more national dealers and it wasn't like a mini national. I was expecting it to be a lot more tables, a lot more national dealers, and it wasn't. And so my first impression was a little bit like, oh, this is just like a bigger, um, like a better local show, or a better 60 card table show with most vintage, with some better dealers. But then when we did, we had lunch with a lot of creators. We had dinner they put on for the YouTube guys, and just going to lunch and hanging out with people, and then you went to trade night, and unfortunately I had to leave. But those events and those things made it a lot more collector to collector communication and having fun outside of the actual show, and to me that makes it a much cooler event than just the 40 or 50 tables that were there.
Right. Yeah, it was a great show. I mean, I hats off to for collectors for all the work they put into trade night. I really didn't know what to expect. I know what to expect now, and I think they're going to have a larger room for trade night. It was very successful.
Yeah, I'm really disappointed I didn't get to go to trade night,
And
but
then Friday night was awesome too. Chris from Missouri promoted it very well, and we had a lot of good sponsors. And they they did Mike and Chris did their show live, so
Mhm.
it was a lot of fun.
It was as much fun as I probably had at a show, honestly, because everyone there, I mean, I could, like as you met people, I had a few people walk up and actually know who I was, which was weird. Um, but I felt like there was a lot of people who just wanted to talk about cards and just were there to nerd out. And it didn't matter if you spent $20 or 20,000. Everyone was very cool about like, hey, would you pick up? Oh, that card's great. And then if they knew you were into something, they would be, hey, go to this guy's table over here. He might have something you like. It was just a lot of collector to collector communication and camaraderie that at the national, honestly, the national is so big, it's hard to do that. Like you get
Right.
lost, you don't see people, like you see them like once a day, and then you kind of like never see them again the rest of the show. There's a lot more places to go hang out afterwards, so you may not all be together in a room like we were on Friday night and then Saturday when you went to the trade night. So it just felt like it was like you
Just a
take all the
close,
cool
homey
people.
feeling. Yeah.
Yeah, you take all the cool people you'd want to hang out with at the national and take out all the modern stuff and all the breakers and all the stuff that we're kind of not interested in and just focus it to the stuff that we found cool. And it was a lot more enjoyable. And I think I'm hoping, and I do, for the folks that put on that show, the four collectors, like they keep the vibe. Like
Yeah,
don't
I
try
agree.
to make it too big. Don't get in with a sponsor that wants you to do breaks and start turning it into just a normal car show because I think that would lose the vibe.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely agree.
Now there was um for me again 2 shows, and in fact, the second day I would have done not a whole lot at trade night because I pretty much sold my entire case at the show.
You
I
did.
only came home with the cards I picked up at the show. But you had a lot of success at trade night. Can you go into it? Like, how was trade night for you?
It was great. I mean, I didn't bring a lot of my PC stuff. I just brought stuff around my card den that I had lost interest in or forgot that I had, and brought it. And even that stuff sold pretty good. I had a stack of Shohei Ohtani rookies that I thought, well, this is probably not the greatest place to bring this, but if somebody wants to trade me something vintage for some Otanis, and it was like the first thing to go. So I got to
Now,
set
how
my.
did you get the Shohei Ohtani cards? Were you buying those as just kind of like
I was
loaded?
opening packs of 2000 Tops Update. I think that's probably the last packs I bought, but
Okay,
I just got in and I knew that there was a good crop of rookies, and just had fun opening them.
okay.
Yeah.
That's no, I mean that's still allowed. I think you know one of the things I'm working on at work is we're starting to combine regions into one region, right? Like so I'm working with Canada and Europe and in this thing of blurred lines and hard lines and dotted lines, right? In collecting, like I don't think you can ever make hard lines. Like you can't say I'll never collect this card or I'll never buy this sport. It's like I think if you start doing that, it makes it where you can't if you want to buy something or collect something, you shouldn't pit like, oh, but I can't because
Right.
I'm not that kind of a collector.
Right.
Um, to me, I think that's the wrong way of looking at it because for me, like when I went into pre-war, and I've always had some pre-war in my collection, but it's like when I said I'm going to kind of divest 50s and 60s and 70s to get into pre-war, um, you know, which I did at the show and having like in a real big way at this show. Um, it it was fun. Like it was kind of like a new adventure, and it was like something I would have not dreamed of doing 10 years ago. I would have been like, there's no way I would ever sell these cards to buy these cards because that's not what I was into. And I think you can change your mind as a collector and go in different directions, and it's allowed. Like there's no rule book out there saying no one's going to give you a penalty if you change your style because you did pretty heavily too.
Oh yeah, I was in the same boat. I was correct collecting 50s, 60s, and 70s, and I just got to the point where it wasn't as fun for me.
Yeah,
So yeah,
yeah. I think I think it's how it is. And I look at what I collect today, and I feel like there's more of it that fits into my puzzle versus it kind of being something that's like, why did I buy this? Like, what does this do in my collection? The thing I thought was really cool about you too, the show is you brought some comic cards
I
from
did.
the 70s, right?
Yeah,
Um,
or
and they did
60s.
really well, or 60s, yeah, they did really
Yeah,
well for you.
yeah. I used them in trade bait towards a card that a vintage card that I wanted, and I did really well with them. They were higher grades from the '66 Marvel superheroes. Just a childhood set, and I decided that if I was ever going to get rid of them, I'd have to send them in and get them graded. And SGC gave them pretty good grades, and so they had some value to them. I was surprised that there's as many people still collecting those as what they do.
Well, it's like I always find that shows there's always this sort of like magical connection between a card you want, the dealer that you're dealing with, and what they want that makes deals happen, right? Because he happened to have the card you really wanted. It's actually in your top 10 list for
Yes,
cards to pick up this year.
yes,
Um, and he wanted those cards. So it was like very serendipitous that like the guy that had the card you wanted the cards that you had.
Yeah, he actually
Never looked.
had one of the graded cards that I have from my set in his display case, and I asked him, "Hey, do you collect those?" And he said, "Yeah, I do." So it worked out really well.
Yeah, it's just crazy. And then for me, it's like day one, I was a little disappointed, not because of the show. In fact, that night was amazing. With the pizza party and the live event. That was cool. It was just sort of like I was expecting more to pick from a dealer perspective. But when I got back on Saturday and really went into the room and dug in, um, like I overlooked the guy I did the trade with Ash. I really overlooked his table because he had so many cards, but I didn't really sit and look at what he really had. And then I found out, wow, he had a lot of really cool cards I would really like to have. Um,
He's got a
because
lot of eye candy.
he does, and the reason I overlooked it is because he has so many big cards, right? That I'm just like, I can't afford a lot of the cards he has in his cases. But then when I started looking, there was a lot of cards. I'm like, oh, there are some really cool ones. And then some reason, the card I ended up trading for at the end, I never saw until literally the last 2 hours of the show. Yeah, and then before I had to leave, and then we made a deal. But that card I never saw, and it's
Yeah,
just
I thought
weird.
you would saw that card.
No, well, the problem is I think it's very easy to with these kind of rare backs and different variations to kind of get blinded to seeing a really rare card because you're so used to seeing the common version,
Right.
and like, oh, like, like on T206 cards, like, I see Chief Bender cards all the time, and I'm like, I have almost every Bender common back variation, you know, that he has. So it's like I don't care about Piedmont, whatever, like, so I don't really look at them. But then
Right.
when someone has an old mill or a sovereign or kind of the mid tier rarity, I'm like, oh, I still need some of those. And
Yeah.
then, like something even more rare. But sometimes I quit looking at them because I'm just used to seeing everything as Sweet Capital and Piedmont.
Yeah.
I don't even see what the back is. And then, back in the old days, they wouldn't put the back on the front of the card, right? You had to
Correct.
flip the card over to see what back it was.
Yep.
So yeah, like that was really interesting. So, to kind of wait to the last minute to hit or to find a really cool card. But that did kind of change my show for me, because that was a really good experience dealing with Ash, um, and then just having a card that I just was not expecting to get because it was just a card that I just thought wouldn't be there. Because when we looked it up, there's literally one card ever graded by SGC, and it's and there's only 5 cards that are this grade or higher.
Right.
So it is the
Yep.
highest graded card from SGC. So
It's
it's just like,
phenomenal.
yeah, I didn't
Phenomenal
expect that to
card.
be there.
Yeah.
So we'll go into the first card you picked up. I think so. This you got this on day one, right?
I did. Yes.
And this was the card that you used your Marvel cards as trade bait for, which I think is really awesome.
That
So
and then, yeah, I'd seen this dealer had this bakery felt, or he had 3 bakery felts, and 2 of them were white. And I asked him, I said, I still need the white Joe Wood bakery felt. And he said, no, I don't have the Joe Wood. And in the next case, he showed me the Wagner, and I'm like,
mm,
wow, that's some nice eye candy. And then I seen in the other display case, he had a graded SGC card of Marvel superheroes, and I asked him, so do you collect this set, or are you just have luck selling them? And he goes, no, I'm actually trying to put this set together. And he said, do you have some? And I said, yeah. I said, I just got a submission back from SGC. He said, well, I'd love to take a look at them. Well, I him hauled around like I normally do, and was thinking about it, and we were finagling back and forth on the price. I wanted to get the price down. I thought he was a little high on the price, but the car doesn't sell very often, and
right.
so it's just really it's really hard to get comps on a card like this.
Yeah.
And so we came to a point where we were pretty close, and I thought, well, that seems to be fair. And then we started talking trade, and I had brought a extra E120 Joe Wood card in SGC2, but it was really attractive. And I traded him that, and I think four four of my Marvel cards. And
Yep.
he asked me what I thought they were worth, and I said, well, I can only tell you what I've seen sales for on eBay. And so we went through eBay together, and he pretty much gave me on the cards that he needed what the eBay sell prices were, which
Yeah.
I was very happy with. And then he gave me comps, full comps on the E120 Joe Wood, and then put that in towards the price that we had negotiated, and I was able to pick this one up.
Yeah. Well, I remember when you saw it, and which I was shocked it was there. It's like,
Yeah.
like something you don't expect to see.
No, no,
Um,
was not expecting that at all.
and I knew it was on your top 10 list, and then I remember you walked away the first time and didn't
Yeah.
get it, and and just
It was
kind of I
eating
remember,
at me. It was eating at me.
oh, I remember just saying like he's gonna take those Marvel cards and in on that card. I'm like, I don't know. It feels like it's meant to happen. I was really feeling like you should go back and get that deal, and you did. And
Yeah,
I know when you went back the second time, you guys you made like you were into making the deal happen.
right.
So that was good. But yeah, I just
And
remember coming back that second time around, and you were like, "Yeah, we're gonna make it. We're gonna
I
make it
don't think
happen."
I don't think the guy had this hit card too long, and I think he was nervous to have it. That's kinda how I felt, and,
Yeah,
I think he was just wanting to get out of it.
yep, you're exactly right. You're exactly right. He had probably felt like maybe he was going to be a hard card to move.
Yeah,
And and you were giving him cards a little more liquid and just getting out of it and moving on to some other material.
right.
Um, yeah, because most likely he had probably tried selling it to other dealers or walked around, and there was maybe not a lot of interest in it because it's
Yeah,
just an issue that is probably for collectors, not a quick flip. Like it's not like a E92 Honus Wagner. It's like the new hot card right now.
yeah,
Um, for Honus Wagner, but it's just like or a 1914 Cracker Jack, right? It's not like one of those cards that like you get people walking in just looking for.
yeah.
Um, so it's just I think it was again it just worked out really well that it was something you were really interested in and getting
Yeah, I was
and
looking for
got able to
bakery
do it.
I was looking for bakery felts there, but I just had no idea that I would find the Wagner there.
No, it was really cool. And let's be honest, like there was a lot of Honus Wagner cards at that show. They were priced really high.
Yeah,
Like it didn't matter what card it was. It could be the anonymous, the anonymous E card where it's just the ugliest photo ever, and people are
yeah,
like an SGC1 that's been wrinkled up and
butchered.
wadded up in the
Yeah,
back pocket, $5,000 or it's just like
yeah,
everything super expensive.
right.
So that was I thought really cool was that you were able to get um the a card real high on your want list
Yeah.
at the show. And I think that was pretty awesome.
Well, I had
Um,
sold my Wagner earlier in the year, and
that's right.
I was wanting a replacement. I need a Wagner in my collection, and this was a rare card, but uh, not quite as much money as what I wanted to have into it.
Um, so another card you picked up here, which again I know you went back and got on day 3 when I wasn't actually there. Was this 1914 Al Bridwell,
Yeah.
and this was a little interesting interaction that you had between the dealer.
He was being pretty harsh on what he wanted for the price, and so I kind of walked away the first day. And then I think I just practically totally bypassed the dealer altogether on the second day, and because he was pretty staunch on his price.
Mhm.
And then it started eating on me, and it's like it's such a nice card. I mean, it's not perfectly centered, but it's well centered. It's just a nice example, clean example of that card. I think that the 4 grade on it is probably a little low, but um, it fits my eye appeal, and it fits in my Glory Other Times collection. And I needed an Al Bridwell card. I had been
Well,
I'd been losing on some auctions on some pretty common T206 stuff, um,
okay.
and and uh, and then I thought, well, it doesn't really get any better than a Cracker Jack. And
Oh,
I
for
I
sure.
really I really wanted another Cracker Jack. I wanted a nice, attractive Cracker Jack, and I went back and seen him. I had a really good conversation with him on the third day. I got to know the dealer a little bit better, and we were able to work out a deal.
Well, that's an interesting thought to on the going back and kind of reestablishing, um, you know, a rapport with the dealer
Yeah,
because we had a conversation, before the video about just with dealers because we had an interesting interaction with the dealer while we were there, or I did, um, and you know, in a way that was pretty negative. If you were just going to get right off, and say it. Um, Not from a deal, just because he was upset with what I said about him in the video, which is really odd. Because I don't really have a big channel, so it was interesting to see that come through. But the idea because I know he kind of waved you away or kind of dismissed you a little bit, and in a way that probably as a for customer services purposes, you probably shouldn't treat your customers in a way that's dismissive and negative if you want to have repeat business. And I feel like there is a interesting thing about this hobby is, you know, some dealers are very good at customer service and some aren't. And I
yeah,
feel like and some of them are organized, some of them are very easy to work with, and some of them are very disorganized and very difficult to get anything done because they're just disorganized to some extent. And I feel like there's just a big wide gap in dealer experience. And I felt like you went back and got something done because you wanted the card.
yeah.
Um, but on the second day you were avoiding the dealer because you had a bad experience on day one.
I did.
So
Yeah,
like that's common. I think for dealers not to realize like, well, if we have a bad interaction or a deal that goes bad or you kind of like dismiss your cards, like we talked about this, like where dealers talk bad about your cards or they say your cards are overgraded during a deal, that doesn't
right.
generally make you feel good about the deal. Right? It generally
No,
makes you feel upset, and then they wonder why you don't come back, or want to stop at their table again. And I feel like that was an interesting thing to happen, that because we both had a little interesting interactions. I think that happens almost every show. You have a dealer that you previously did a great deal with, and then their prices have gone up, and you're like, oh, what happened there? Or a dealer you've never dealt with, and all of a sudden they have great prices on a card, and you do a deal with them, and it kind of surprises you.
right.
Um,
That's true.
and so it's just kind of you have to be open minded about it. But I do feel like dealers should be a little more open to feedback if they're having, you know, they if they do something that's negative. I think they should, be open to say, hey, like I didn't appreciate the way that deal went down. But that's an interesting conversation because some dealers don't like feedback from from
Right.
what I've learned. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think for me, I think I have to be a little more careful on being too over enthusiastic on providing feedback sometimes.
Well, we're
Um,
all we're all human, and we all got different personalities. We got some
yeah,
clashing going on. So I mean, it's bound to happen. It's just a bad thing.
yeah, and I think too. It's a we talk about this. It's a hobby, but sometimes these dealers are making a lot of money. So if you're spending $10,000, $20,000 at a show with a dealer, you would at least expect that they would treat you nicely and not act like you're bothering them when you talk to them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was joking because I know, like, in one of the video, I bought a card from Stan, and then he did a deal with another guy, and he gave him like a freebie. I'm like, where's my freebie? I spent some money. I didn't get a freebie, but I didn't really care. It's just kind of funny, like, dealers definitely have a little bit of a different way of treating each customer, and that's fine. It's
Right.
kind of like you have, people that what do they call them, like long term, customers versus like you don't know who I am. So yeah, it's fine.
Right.
It was my first time I ever bought a card from him actually. Um, Now the last thing you got here, at the show, which I thought was the coolest thing you picked up just because of how neat it was.
Yeah.
Not, I mean, the Wagner card is Honus Wagner, right? It
Right.
doesn't hardly get much better than that. But this, I think, from a cool factor, was probably the coolest thing you picked up.
Yeah. I almost walked away from this several times. Well, I actually did walk away from it. I had seen it, and I seen it in the showcase, and I asked the guy if I could take a look at it, and looked it over, and boy, it was just so clean. These things are so paper thin, and you can see
Yes.
right through them. And it didn't have any wrinkles or creases. It has a little tear perforation in the bottom right hand corner, which
Right.
really doesn't bother me too much.
And
And
this is the Sporting News, or
yeah, this is from the Sporting News Supplement.
okay,
I think they're from like 1909 to 1913. Up in the upper left hand corner, there's a date. I think it's from 1910, which is like
okay.
the year he passed away. So it was taken the year that he passed away. And I just kept looking at that, and I'm like, man, that is just gorgeous. I've never really had any Addy Joss material, and he was such an awesome pitcher. And when when the whole league puts on a special game for the family of the Joss family, that you were much appreciated, and that's what happened. That was really the first All-Star game, and it was a benefit game for the family of Addy Joss.
So I don't really know the story about it, Josh, too much. So how do you die?
Uh, it was some kind of illness. I think maybe lungs or something, but I'm guessing right now. It's been a
Hmm.
while since I read that story. But yeah, it was some kind of a rare disease that just kind of snuck up on him and took his life.
Wow.
Yeah,
Well,
so
that
it was
I mean,
tragic.
obviously Lou Gehrig, and like there's been a few that's had similar, I guess, sudden, issues like that or death.
Right,
But yeah, I feel like this card or this, piece, we would
right.
call it that, is impressive in size, but it just had such a great image.
It
And
does.
around the show floor, like when you were showing it to people were super excited that you got it because it's such an impressive looking piece.
Right. Well, this was a local guy from Cleveland, and he said that he has owned it for quite a long time, and then he had it graded. And so when I came back the second time to take a look at it, he said, "Let me show you something." And so he pulled it out of the case again. I said, "Yeah, I wouldn't mind taking a look at it again." And he turned it over, and it had the Charles Buck Barker stamp on the back,
Mm.
which he said that he was surprised that I knew who Charles Buck Barker was because
Mm.
my face lit up. And I'm like, no kidding. And I said, this was owned by, Buck Barker. And he goes, yeah. He goes, you know who he is? And I'm thinking, yeah, he's one of our founding fathers of our, you know, uh, collectors. He's he's legendary, and
Mm.
he's helped put the American card catalog together. He was big into the Trader Speaks, the early Trader Speaks, and he started collecting baseball cards in like 1922 as a kid. He put together the E121 set, and he's put together every set from 1922 all the way up until he passed away. And so I'm like, oh man, this is so cool. And I actually had put it back in the case, and I was going to go find uh, uh, another buddy of mine, and I turned around, and he was right behind me, and it was Aaron from Value Vintage Baseball Cards,
Hmm.
and then Jason Everyday Collector. They were standing right behind me, and he goes, dude, he says, that is an awesome piece. He says, I just I just bought one through the mail, and he said, but mine is tattered up compared to this one. And he says, I don't know what they got price on it, but he said if it's decent price, he said I'd pick that up. And
Hmm.
then I flipped it over and showed him the tag on it, and he goes, "Oh yeah, you got to do it." So I'm like, "Okay, I'm pulling the trigger. I've got enough consolation here." So
Well,
I don't think I
I
really
I
went
saw you.
multi on it, but
I remember walking up to the table with the dealer because you'd seen it already, and I knew you were really interested in it. And I
yeah,
know I walked down a little ways, and then I was kind of surprised that you bought it because I thought, she kind of put it back. I'm
right,
like, okay, well, maybe he'll wait till tomorrow or something. And then you got it. I'm like, wow, that's cool. Because I know you wouldn't put it in your truck because it's such a big piece. You didn't want to just
yeah,
carry it around.
right,
But yeah, that was really cool. I'm glad because I think on sometimes you just kind of go with your gut. When you see something that's cool, and you're just like, I have to have it because it's just so
right.
just
Well,
kind of fits.
it caught me off guard. I was not expecting to see a piece like that there.
Yeah.
And when I seen that, and then I seen the stamp on the back, I was like, "Yeah, that's my sign right there." This was personally owned by Buck Barker,
Well,
so I was pleased to get that.
I think there's a lot of you know people when they look at these kind of cards and they look at something like this and they're going, well, that's not really a card, right?
Right.
That's like a and I'm like, they're so cool. Oh, going back to the sorry, go back here. They go back and they look at like just like your Honus Wagner, like if they're not traditional cards, then they're not collectible or worth anything. And I do feel
Right.
like the hobby has moved past that in a pretty big way
Yeah.
to where oddball, we used to have the oddball, right? If it wasn't normal size, is oddball,
Right.
has become much more mainstream. And I think this is a
Yeah.
great example of people love the image in these cards, these bigger pieces, because of how they display and how they're real photos. They're not just like, sometimes these crude drawings of people that you get sometimes.
It's a good sized piece. I think it's like 8 by 10.
Yeah, 8 by 10. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just I think we're definitely moving past the stigma of oversized or undersized, because it's all about the quality of the piece, and this is one of those good examples where it doesn't really matter what the grade is; it's the presentability of the piece,
Yeah.
right? It's like it's got to look nice because it's about this is a display item.
Correct.
Like it's going to look good on the wall. It's going to look good in the case. It's like that's the big picture here is like this is a really cool looking piece from the 1910s
Yeah.
that has great color and presentability, and it's like that is worth a lot today to collectors too, where in the past it was like, well, it's not a card, so it's going to be worth very very little compared to something that's part of a set that I can put in a box somewhere. What can
Yeah.
I do with this giant 8 by 10? Yeah. I think
And
we've gotten
I also felt that my Joe Wood in the same exact piece in the same PSA holder sitting in my display case was feeling a little lonely. And I
Yeah,
wanted
for sure.
another contemporary picture from American League. You know, that was
Well,
uh,
I'm sure there's a Chief Bender, right?
that would be a cool one too, though.
I will. Well, we'll talk about Bender in a little bit because I did finally get some. Well, I don't want to say finally. I mean, I picked up some nice Benders this year. I mean, I picked up the um, what's it, the M116. I'm trying to think the T227. It's a really
Right.
cool one. So, I can't be like, oh, I haven't picked up any cool Benders this year, but I picked up the 1915 Cracker Jack and the T227. So,
Yeah.
it's been a pretty good year already, but I definitely added to that legacy here in the last couple of
Yeah.
auctions and
You got some big ones here recently.
at the Strongsville. So the first card that I picked up, so which I kind of did a premature showcase here, was the 65 Bazooka panel, and so this is all I picked up on day one. This is my sole day one pickup, I believe, and yeah, it was a card that you know I had originally at the show. I brought a case of 50s, 60s, and 70s cards to sell, and I sold a lot of cards to I'm trying to think of his name now, the big Clemente collector, who had a 62 Venezuelan
Oh,
Clemente. Um,
Howard.
yeah, Howard.
Yeah.
And in the end of the day, I just didn't like the card, and I talked to a lot of other collectors, and they were all pretty much telling me that the card has no color based on how it was printed. It's always going to look like it's washed out or faded. Um, but based on the price that he was asking and just like other cards I was interested in, I decided like I wasn't probably going to pursue it. But I saw this panel here at a booth, and the fact that it's a PSA, which means it has to have the black all the way around it, and it was a pretty good, it's a pretty good grade for a panel card, a 6. And I don't have this bazooka. I was pretty excited about kind of extending into the, again, oddball, the bazookas, the cons, which I've already got a few cons cards of Clemente, and kind of continuing my journey into the Clemente side because I've already got my base set done. And getting some of these, I call it, again, non-standard or oddball issues, food issues, things like that. Um, and you can get whole boxes. You can, there's a lot of ways to collect these, right? You can do the individual card, you can do the panel, you can do the box. So I'm not sure, people are like, don't buy the boxes, like they're just they're too big to
I
store. I'm like,
agree.
but
I think they're unique, but they're awfully big.
yeah, yeah. So I just thought this was cool, and I thought the grade was cool, good for me, and I picked this up to start, and that was, it wasn't much of a first day. But I did scout out and kind of got a plan for day two. But yeah, this is kind of like it's almost like for this show, this is kind of boring. Like picking up just this and again, this is still a pretty cool piece. It's like for a Clemente collector, this is still
And,
pretty cool,
and
pretty
a
rare.
pirate collector. You got Bob Veal on there.
Yeah, we got two pirate guys. I mean, so I was okay with this because to me it was
Yeah.
just getting something to start and something that I don't have, that I've never had. As a Clemente collector, I've never had a piece like this, so I was happy. But day two, my next pickup was, to me, pretty unique.
Yeah.
For one thing, the George Miller, Paul Wainer. Um,
Beautiful.
this card is gorgeous. It really is. Um, it a lot of collectors when after I got it looked at it, and it's just puzzling as to the grade 3. There has to be some damage that is not very visible on the front and back, at either a crease that, like some spider creases that somewhere in the card, or there's some paper loss that I couldn't find. But if you look at the front, it is a very nice looking 3. Now, the one thing that was interesting to me was the George Miller set itself. There wasn't many full size cards at the show. There was a few that were redeemed that had or kind of cut, like cut off. They're not cut in half. They're kind of like a two-third, like a third of the cards cut. Um, but you know, having the full size card is, I think, much better than having the redeemed version of it. Um, so yeah, this was kind of like starting out day two for me, and kind of having a card that is rare, fits in the pirate collection, and just generally is a just a great looking card, for this time period.
I like this card better than the Diamond Stars, and then everybody raves about Diamond Stars. I love this. It's a
I
beautiful
I
card.
agree.
Yeah,
I think in general, I know that at the current REA auction, there's a Jimmy Fox 6 on, and it's I think it's a 6. It's got a lot of bids. It's
yeah,
very people really like this set. When you get
right.
them like this, and um, yeah, I'm really excited. I've never owned a card from the set. I've had some tattoo orbits, but this card to me is a lot nicer. I think D-Long would be another set that you'd say like, okay, well, from the same time period that has a lot of good eye appeal. But
Yeah,
seeing this in hand for the first time, a full size Wainer, I was really shocked. And I got this from Ash on day two, real early. So this was kind of like, I kind of pulled the trigger. I'm like, this card's super cool. I'm going to go ahead and buy it. And he had it priced super good as well. Like it was priced right where it needed to be. It was not, and that was another factor too. It was just priced well. It was a
yeah.
great card, and he had it priced, which I thought he could have been a little bit higher on it actually, and it still would have been a good deal. So I felt comfortable with the price, and it's just one of those cards that when you look at it in hand, it's like, wow, that's a cool card. So let's see here. So going into the kind of the bigger cards I picked up, the obviously the next card I'm gonna show is kind of, 'cause I'm doing kind of chronological order here. Um, this is the card I picked up from Stan, and this is on my top 10 list. So the E91 Cy Young. Um, so it's not the biggest card I picked up, but from a most generic collector perspective, it's probably the card that most people would recognize or view as being the big card. If they didn't know, like they just looked at all my cards and said, okay, what's the most expensive card? I think most collectors would have picked this card, like this
Right.
E91 Cy Young. They're 1.5, but it has great color, um, and presents really, really well for the grade.
It does.
And there was Ash had one as well, and it was really rough compared to this one. It was either Ash or I think it was Ash that had the second one, and it was a pretty rough for the grade
Yeah,
compared to this one. Um,
and I think they were compatible in or comparable in grades too.
they were the exact same grade,
Yeah,
yeah, and this one was just a lot nicer. Um, yeah, I've owned this card once before, and I regretted selling it, and I'm just super stoked that I was able to get this to find a card in my top 10, because I think that's the cool thing is we both found cards in our top 10 at this show,
yeah,
and this was one that um, you know um, Southern Collector, he picked up the E91 Matthewson at the show at the trade night. That was awesome. I wish I'd have seen that. But yeah, I'm really enjoying the E91 set. I have the Bender, and I have another card I picked up at the show from the set, and then so I'll probably have about 5 cards from the set now, and I'm really enjoying the set. I know it's got a Joe Jackson, which makes the set almost impossible now to ever put together.
yeah. The
Uh,
Tris Speaker is pretty tough too.
yeah, it's a tough set. I mean, there are some variations in how nice the cards are in terms of the um, translation of the picture to the card. some cards look really nice and some look a little rough in how they depicted the player.
Yeah,
But I do think in general, like how they did this Cy Young is a beautiful card.
it is great. I think they take this picture from the Bryce Williams card from 1903.
Yeah, because the uniform itself makes the card. I mean, this is kind of like one of the OG color matches, right? I mean,
Yeah,
the Red Sox uniform with the red background makes it, have the eye appeal that everyone kind of really loves in the set.
yeah.
So
What makes this one is really nice is that red background on
yeah,
your card, and a lot of times you'll have the red background, but you'll have all these spider creases
mhm.
going through them, and this one is absent of any.
Yeah,
It
and I think
just
that
looks
the
the
thing
red
is,
pop.
yeah, it's got the rounded corners, but it's just like it's a very uniform looking card that
Yeah,
had, to me, it's very stoked that it was available. Now, did I get a good deal on it? I would say I paid more than last comp, but it's about eye appeal that you have to kind of go for, and so you pay more for eye appeal, and I think that's sort of it made sense to me. I mean, once I got the deal, and this came from Stans, so I felt like it was an okay deal, but it definitely wasn't like a value. Like I was like, oh, I got this under comp. The George Miller card I got under comp. This card I was kind of right on, or about 10% over, what the last one sold. But it's all, but that's the IPO, what you call the IPO tax, right?
yeah, and
You
it's
know,
an A-list card.
yes. And in reality, I think it would have sold if I hadn't bought it. Someone would have bought it at the show. I think it wouldn't have survived. I think the
Right.
entire 3 days. So I'm kind of glad I was kind of there early to be able to pick it up. But it was, on my list, and it was definitely the first thing once I sold some cards and had some cash, it was the first thing I really thought about going and spending money on. Because once I decided I wasn't going to get the Venezuelan Clemente, I'm like, okay, this is now the card I'm going to go get because I have the money and the funds to go grab it. So
Yeah.
um, the next card I'm going to show you that I picked up is kind of like um, I won't say it was like an impulse purchase, but as soon as he gave me a price on this card, I immediately bought it.
Yeah, your ears perked up.
Because it was like, um, I was almost kind of shocked that he, um, you know, kind of threw this price out. Um, get it up here real quick. Yeah, StreamYard is definitely a little more user friendly, but it's still a little clunky to get stuff up quickly. Here we go. I'll pull it up here. Uh, yeah. So when he gave me this price for this card, I was like, yeah, I have to go get it.
Yeah.
Eddie Plank, the E91. So in my other E91 pickup, and Plank just doesn't have that many cards. Let's just be honest. I mean, he's not one of those players for whatever reason that made it into all the crazy sets. I think he's got a Ramley, right? That's we were talking about. Like
Yeah.
he's got a, but like he doesn't have like all the variations like the T206. He's not in the T25. He's not in the T207. It's just
Right.
like he's not in the major tobacco sets like a lot of these guys are. And that just makes these cards like this so much more valuable. And then this is an attractive image of him.
It is, yeah.
And so yeah, and it's an interesting color background. I don't know really what you would call that color. It's like charcoal or it's like a grayish black, interesting, because usually you get these kind of like green, red, blue backgrounds, and this is like a real interesting color for the background on this
Almost looks
card.
like a charcoal painting.
Yeah, like it's just a really interesting looking card, and but the price point he gave me almost felt like a mistake.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was getting ready to say. Is I was thinking that when he gave you your price, he would recant that price and say, "Oh, I meant a different price."
because he was about, I would say, almost $400 under what I was expecting the price to be.
Right.
Um, so yeah, this isn't, and I don't want people to think like, oh, we're just kind of ripping people off. I mean, he had a lot of cards in his table that were priced right at it. So it wasn't like, I think he priced it based on what he bought it for.
Yeah, I believe so too.
Not what, he didn't go through and look at recent comps or whatever. He just priced it like, I paid
He
X
was
for it.
buying
I'm gonna
stuff
get,
there to move it.
yeah, he was flipping.
Yeah.
He was he didn't have a ton of cards, but he was moving material fast. He was buying and selling at the show, yeah, as fast as he could pick up. He was selling it. So I think he was just looking to get a percentage off of what he paid. But when he showed me the price, I was like, holy crap, that's cheap. So I made that really fast. I tried to make that happen really fast, and yeah, so it's my first plank card, and really I was happy to pick it up. And as soon as I bought it, I think I turned to Doug. I'm like, I might do the E91 set, and then they were like, yeah, there's a Joe Jackson card. I'm like, shit, crap, that 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 kiboshes that a little bit, but it is a cool set. And I do in this card, actually, eye appeal wise, it's centered, the image is good. It's a 1.5, but it presents really well for a 1.5. It's not, I think the dark background doesn't give it the eye appeal like the Cy Young, but it's still a pretty nice card.
It's a great card.
Now and then the last card I picked up, obviously, is kind of the big one. Big pickup here, Doug. I mean, you saw me working on it literally until the second the show was over on Saturday. My wife and kids were coming to pick me up to take me to Indiana to go on vacation. So like I had to get it done before that happened. And I traded every card in my box, or sold every card in my box, to Ash, to as part of the deal. And as part of it, I bought this card. And then I took the rest of the money and ended up buying the card later, and actually a really nice Griffey card for my collection. But I didn't see this card. I did not see this Mellow Mint Chief Bender. And the Mellow Mint, by far, is one of the rare backs for this card. This so 106, right?
Yes.
Uh, I'm always get the numbers wrong, but um, you know, it's one that I knew, you've got these different backs, and Mellow Mint's one of the ones that is kind of mythical. Like, you don't see them, and I'll show you what the back looks like. They look amazing. Like, they're just such a cool looking back, and they're rare. And when I first
Yeah.
looked through his table, I didn't even see it. And I know you said you saw it, and I'm like, wow, I just can't believe I missed it.
Yeah. I was surprised that you didn't make a bigger deal out of it, but I
Yeah.
thought maybe it was the price point, so I wasn't sure.
Well, yeah, he had a price pretty high, and this card sold. So we'll get into the deal a little bit, but um, the way it works, from this card perspective, rarity wise, there's like one SGC card that's a 5, that's the highest graded ever, and there's only been 2 cards from SGC ever graded. And the other one's authentic. So you have an authentic and you have an SGC 5, and then there's 4 PSA 5s, and that's the highest they've ever been graded. And I believe there's 9 cards total ever been graded for this issue. So it's an incredibly rare card to begin with. It's the highest graded. If you look at PSA or SGC, there's only been a 5. There's never been a 6 or higher. And so that's kind of the rarity. Like, it's a super rare card. It sells maybe once every 2 or 3 years. And I imagine that a lot of these cards are in permanent collections. Like, they're not really going to be up for auction very often.
Yeah.
So from that perspective, I knew it was a card that I was looking for in terms of rarity. I knew as soon as I saw it, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I missed this card. But the thing that's even more funny was I went back not to get this card from him. I went back to get the Cap Anson, the Allen and Ginner Cap Anson card he had that was like a SGC or PSA 1, and he sold it. So like I went back to go to work with him on a deal for the Cap Anson card. He sold it, and then while I was waiting because he was super busy, I saw this card, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe he has this card. And from there on, we worked out a deal. The thing that was crazy about the deal was he took every card I had, and as far as a cash trade deal, he brought the price of this card down to below what it last sold for. So, because this exact copy sold literally like 6 months before. And I don't think Ash bought it. I think what happened was the guy bought it in an auction and then ended up trading it to Ash or whatever. But by the time the deal got done, um, he came down off his price a little bit because he did the trade deal with me. And I ended up paying actually less than the guy who bought it on auction paid for. So that's kind of cool that I was able to get it underneath the last price. But I understand it's a very niche card, right? It's like it's a rare card, but it's something unless you're a huge Bender collector or putting the set together, you probably doesn't jump
Yeah.
at you as being rare.
Yeah, you'd have to be a Bender collector or a typeset collector.
Yeah. And that's sort of what happens in pre-war is like you get into these really rare cards and you have to kind of understand like it's going to appeal to a small subset of that collecting base, but the rarity is there to the point where even let's say non-Bender collectors would recognize the set as being rare. And so they would view that like, oh well, it's a Melement, it's super rare, super cool. They're hard to get, and I view this almost like I moan and groan a lot about the Victory Tobacco card I didn't buy, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, as being like, well, once I didn't buy it, I've never had another chance, right? I think if I passed up on this card and then it sold,
Yeah, you'd be in the same scenario.
I never have another chance to get a card like this ever again, and
Yeah.
it's just to me as a Bender collector, it's one of those cards that um, I value tremendously because of just the uniqueness of it, and it is to me, when you see this back, you're like, this is like a really cool back, and I like how this back actually looks. It's a very clean back.
Yeah, very.
So yeah, I think that. But I made this deal again in the last minute, and then I had basically cash left over. So I was pretty happy leaving the show. I had got a rare Bender. I got a really cool Cy Young card that was on my list for the year, and the George Miller, Wayner, and the Plank. Were all very. To me, it's like happy bonuses, and then the one Clemente card is kind of like almost like a throw-in. Like oh well, that was just you know and that's the thing is like you go to shows like this, and a card that you normally may think of as a really cool pickup becomes just kind of fun card but these other cards are much cooler.
Yeah.
It's kind of like how I look at that card now. But in the end of the day, it's like you picked up a Wagner, I picked up a Cy Young. It's like I felt like we had a really fun time, and the show itself was a great time.
Yeah, it was.
um, I never really thought like I've had times where I've been at the national or the shows where the show itself was like like it wasn't fun every minute. Like there was parts where it's like like at the national with the AC wasn't on. I remember it was really hot in the room,
Oh
and
yeah.
you
In
know like
Chicago.
yeah, and it was like trying to get from table to table. Like it was like it was like just a lot of walking and crowds were just wasn't a lot of fun to navigate. This it never really felt like that here, even though on day two by about noon it was crowded.
Yeah.
And it's like from like 11 to like 3 it was super crowded, and then on the end, in the very beginning and the very end it thinned out, but there was times when it was hard to get around.
Yeah. Yeah, there's
Um,
going to be a point where they're going to have to expand that floor, maybe another rink, the other rink or something. Maybe not next year, but I'm saying soon. And same thing with the trade night. I think initially that they had a bigger room, and there was a confusion in some employees and what was said as far as reservations, and we got a
mm,
smaller room than what we should have got. But I think next year, I'm sure they're working on that, and because the Saturday night trade night was just unbelievable. I really didn't know what to expect, but it went over really, really well, and I
well, I
was
think that
greatly
the thing
surprised.
about it is with the vintage guys is this is that there's a high motivation amongst those collectors to trade with themselves because they're looking to further the collection, right? They're
Right.
not looking to flip, right? It's not a flippers. Even though I'm sure there's people in the room that were looking to buy to sell,
Yeah.
but in general, when you have motivated people willing to trade extras in a lot of cases for cards they need for their set, you're going to have motivated parties, making deals happen. Versus going to a trade night where everyone's trying to act like dealers, right? Trying
Yeah.
to, you know, get their 20 or 40% margin on and kind of more all about selling. I feel like that type of trade night that you went to is more probably geared towards collectors, getting cards they need for either their sets or or just cards they want, and not so much worried about like getting, the top dollar for everything.
Right. Being that this was the first year I wanted to contribute as part of the trade night, but I think next year I would just soon just walk around and visit with everybody and
Yeah.
get to see a lot of the guys and a lot of the of dealers and get to talk to more people. I kind of got stuck at the table, um, but it was still fun. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think in general, like the thing that I was happy about the show is that it was fun to just hang out with people that like almost like it was such a card nerd environment. It's just everyone was really enjoying cards
Right. It was
and
true
just having fun.
enthusiasm. Yeah, for the hobby.
Very enthusiastic, very
Yeah.
much into what they were collecting and what they were getting, and and having people supporting and helping, like giving advice, like, hey, we think about this, we think about that. There's a lot of people who were just there to make it a better event, and I do think the national has that happen, but it's such a big show, you don't get to experience it while it's happening.
Yeah.
Like, there was a lot of deals being done that you could just walk right there and see it being done or talk to the guy right after. There was just like it felt like when someone would buy a cool card within 5 minutes, like we were talking about it or we were
Yeah.
seeing it. And the national, it's like you might see them at trade night that night or whatever, but you're not. You very rarely are you close by when something happens. You're like, oh, that's cool. Let's check this out. Like people who got to go in early and kind of do deals prior to the show. Um, so I'm not sure that really affected me, but I do know like if you were there trying to find really cool early stuff, like there was a guy that we met doing the rare backs, on
Right.
T26,
Yeah.
and I do feel like like or if you're doing Cracker Jacks, right? Those cards may have been gone early, and if you didn't get early access, you may not have been able to find those. So I do feel like getting early access to the show in the future might be a big deal if you're looking for some of the stuff that's really rare or moves really fast. Talking to you about RA because you got me back into it, and um, it's always I enjoy that auction a lot.
Yeah, I do
I
too.
have a lot of fun with it, and
Yeah.
It's better than eBay. It's better than anything else because it's just there's so much cool stuff in that auction. I just enjoy seeing the card sell and kind of being like, wow, look at that card. And, it's just to observe it, it's fun. But to win
Yeah.
a few cards,
It's
you know,
very educational
oh
because
yeah,
you
I
get to
mean,
see cards pop up on there that you just rarely ever see,
yeah, I
and,
mean, you showed
that's
me a
how I
card
keep
tonight.
track of some of this stuff.
Yeah, you showed me a card tonight that I've never seen before.
Yeah.
It's just like there's just every time, it's like, wow, look at that. And there are some cards in this auction that are
Yeah.
incredibly rare, and so it'll be fun to see what some of those bring.
Yeah.
I
I'm
mean,
excited. I'm excited.
yeah, me too. So, well, thanks, Doug. I appreciate hanging out with you, and Strongsville was amazing.
It
Thank you
was.
for for helping make that happen on my part because without you, I probably wouldn't have gone. So I
Right.
really appreciate it. All right, Doug. Well, thank you very much, and I enjoyed going through Strongsville with you. And hopefully, yeah, tomorrow, REA, and let's cross our fingers. Maybe we both win something,
Yeah.
and it'll be fun to see if we can or not. And
Yeah, we'll
I might
talk
be,
some more.
yeah, and I might have a 14 Cracker Jack tomorrow. You never know.
Wow, that'd be awesome.
That'd be
That'd be
awesome.
awesome.
All right, man. See you
All right,
later,
thanks,
and see
Jason.
you next time. Bye.
Bye-bye.